Today is the day that the first of Overwatch 2's major 2025 changes have hit, and boy howdy, they really needed it. 2024 was a fairly awful year for Overwatch 2, right? They'd had years of tweaking the game, not really doing that much, loads of bad headlines, them being stuck in the defense, and to sum up the change in strategy, there is a quote from the director. "This is no longer about playing it safe," which I think most of us will say, yeah, about bloody time, and in a world where rivals exists, you absolutely can't play it safe. And Overwatch 2 did feel safe, even though if you think about it, Overwatch 2 is an absurdly risky game. Not only, yes, did they jettison loads of their audience knowingly, but it's basically them snatching defeat from the jaws of victory with Overwatch, and then scrambling to keep a husk of a game that they salvaged alive, again, because that's actually what happened with Titan, leading to Overwatch, even if it meant amputating PvE, amputating a whole development team to support that feature. It's pretty damn crazy, and now they're essentially doing Overwatch 2, in that we're seeing foundational game changes, the first of which have hit with Season 15. So, to start, let's break down what their offer is and see if it's even something that we want. I've also got an important tool to share with you, and I say important because it solves a real problem for me, which is spam calls and, well, scams being targeted at my family. The sponsor is Incogni. They sponsor today's video, and they are our way to fight back and also protect ourselves and our family. When our data goes online, data brokers harvest it and then they sell it to the highest bidder. That sucks, and at best it means you get robocalls. At worst, those lists get in the hands of scammers. How do you think scammers get phone numbers to call? 2 people I know have been victims, and they have lost actual, real, tangible amounts of money to scams. And what Incogni does is it purges your data from the internet and it keeps it down. And you can get started today with 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/Bellular News. And here's how it works. Once you're in, you add your emails, your phone numbers, and your home addresses. With a family plan, you can do that for your family as well. As an example, you know, parents who may be a little more susceptible to spam calls. It's one good example. And here's where it's really cool, right? You have got the legal right to get your data taken down, to do it yourself. But actually doing that is tiresome and manual, and it's also whack-a-mole because it just gets re-harvested, right? So Incogni automatically sends takedown requests, and it adds you to suppression lists, which block recollection of your data. But importantly, it rescans and rescans to keep that data down. So here is my personal dashboard. You can see 150 sent requests, 142 completed. I've not touched it since October, but since October, Incogni's removed me from 35 more brokers. I straight up don't get robocalls anymore. It's awesome. So you can join today at incogni.com/Bellular News, and you'll get 60% off an annual plan. As you watch this video, Overwatch 2 Season 15 has just started, and Blizzard have previewed content all the way up to Season 18, which is well into the back half of 2025. And for once, it doesn't look like it's all fluff, which basically is what most of us would have expected. We're seeing game fundamentals be changed, new modes that actually feel like new, and rewards, especially loot boxes. Now, the first big feature, right, is perks, and the perks are game-wide. Basically, the way this works is that within a match, heroes can level up twice. Each time they level up, you'll be able to select from 2 perks. Now, your first perk selection is going to be a minor thing. They gave examples like Torbjorn's hammer repairing allies' armor, or him getting a free reload when he uses his E, but the second perk is basically a major upgrade. For Torbjorn, those are either super jazzed up tier 3 turrets, or your turrets being sticky, which I can imagine will lead to all manner of bullshit. And honestly, I'm actually kind of down for that. Because what it's doing, right, is it's tweaking the build of a character that I enjoy. It lets me do that to better fit the match that I'm in, rather than just fully swapping to a new hero. That actually does sound kinda neat to me. And big picture, it's a foundational change. Something that'll actually change it minute to minute, which is sorely needed. For other things then, well, 5v5 versus 6v6 certainly has escalated because they're now adding in a competitive 6v6 queue. But then there's the big headline-grabbing thing, loot boxes. It's kind of funny, right? In the year 2025, people are praising the return of loot boxes. That being said, there was some fear. Lots of people thought, we know what this is. You're immediately going to use this to just make way more money, because if you look at everything else that they did, mythic skins, mythic weapons, mythic prisms, I mean, it would be following like standard procedure. But no, actually, this time we're getting loot boxes, but not in the way that they were exploitative bullshit like in Overwatch 1. Which is honestly kind of shocking. Basically, the way it works is this. You'll find loot boxes as rewards on the free and premium battle pass and on challenges. That's it. With the big thing being no direct purchases of those loot boxes, although, as I'll get into, unless you're in China because they've got something else going on, Now, technically, you could buy a bunch of Battle Pass tier skips or, buy the Battle Pass to get the ones that are on the Premium Pass, but yeah, that's kind of that. It's way more simple. It's just a better way of you getting rewards versus, I suppose, the usual torrent of filler Battle Pass bullshit, which I think we're pretty much all over by this stage. Now, the way it works is they'll have clearer odds, guaranteeing rares in every box, epics every 5, and a legendary every 20 with dupe protection. And at least for Season 15, we've got 2 legendary boxes in the Premium Pass, 1 in the Free Pass, and the rest from challenges and promos. And of course, if you're in Belgium, well, you don't get any of that, but of course, you know the drill by now. Okay, there's actually more things. Like, there is the usual coming. You've got a new hero, Freya, hero bans in competitive, it's kind of interesting, but most of all, there's a new game mode that is called Stadium. Now, when I think about a new game mode for something like Overwatch, it's not a massive change, right? Like, yes, it can be fun, like, say, Flashpoint, if I'm already an Overwatch player, but it's not really a new mode of play or a new reason for me to play if I'm not already embedded. That's actually where I'm kind of interested in Stadium. So here's the deal with Stadium. It's a 7-round mode. In rounds, you earn coins, and then in between the rounds, you spend those coins on ability modifiers. Now, these are modifiers that are separate to the perk system that's rolling out game-wide. And they're honestly kind of wild. It's things like Reinhardt flying behind the enemy through the air before using a lava-like sparking version of Fire Strike, Soldier 76's Biotic Field actually giving an attack speed buff to people who are in it, Kiriko teleporting about the place, and loads of wacky things. Basically, right, it seems to be Counter-Strike style econ gameplay between the different rounds. It's a little bit more similar to something like, say, Deadlock from Valve with a few of the character things. Or, of course, Paladins, which, by the way, Hi-Rez have just announced they've paused development for. Anyway, what's most obvious, though, is it's third person. Obviously, a lot of people are thinking about Rivals, and also putting my thinking cap on. If you want to sell skins, rather shockingly, being in the third person is better than the first person, because then people can see the thing that they purchased. Though look, putting that bit of cynicism aside, I'll say credit where it's due. Look, you guys know I have been really goddamn harsh on Overwatch, right? For a long time. This is actually something that, to me, feels new and different, right? So credit where it's due. This is them building more game features and more in-depth mechanics with perks, with Stadium, not just doing the status quo, which to me has just been minimally delivering content whilst ramming the game full of financial asks that feel wholly unearned. And in the case of Stadium, it seems they're taking it pretty damn seriously. So V1 of Stadium has got 14 of the 42 heroes, but they've staffed up a full team to carry that mode going forward. And in a way that may look like a minimum viable product, I do kind of get that actually, but it's very new. What they're doing with the perks does seem like a lot of complexity, so I'd rather have 14 in good than 42 and completely goddamn busted. But okay, this has already been a chunky segment of the video. I'm going to rapid fire the rest. So Season 17 adds map voting, there's a new Flashpoint map, standard past cosmetic stuff. Season 18 has got a new character, and that's kind of what's going on. And it's all rather well timed, given the elephant in the room, which is NetEase. When I say NetEase, you're probably thinking about Rivals as the big bit of competition. Yes, but also no, because NetEase is also the Overwatch 2 distributor in China, right? So no matter what, NetEase is going to win. And Overwatch was big in China. Get a load of this, right? If you go to Steam right now, you will see that Overwatch 2 has got a fairly brutal review score. Now, at launch, it was worse. And at launch, around 2/3 of the reviews were written in simplified Chinese. And of those reviews, 97% were negative, right? That's crazy. They were really, really pissed. And that's because at that time, negative Steam reviews were just about the only real way the Chinese players could express their anger over Overwatch 2's shutdown in China, and especially do that in a way that actually would be noticeable in the West, not just on, a social media network that only is in China that the rest of us never really see. So sure, while the Steam score has risen to 42, it's now no longer overwhelmingly negative, but even to this day, there are more negative reviews in simplified Chinese than there are reviews of any kind in English, which is to say, yeah, Overwatch kind of was a big deal in China, right? And that's why all of this is very well timed, because these announcements from Blizzard dropped during the Chinese relaunch's technical testing. And that means this really does look like, well, pretty damn well-timed PR. They've announced all of these changes right as they're reactivating their Chinese player base, which we know is goddamn huge. Number one, because Overwatch went down pretty well there. Number two, because China's absolutely humongous. Now, it also will help that over in China, they do get their own very special loot box currency. A fun way for them to catch up on those 12 seasons worth of cosmetics and, of course, hand over many yuan. Anyway, what this does mean is that, yes, externally, we look at this, we see Rivals, and it feels like Blizzard just smashed that emergency button. But the thing is, software is kind of hard. It does take quite a while to make software, and if this team was capable of mounting a full response to Rivals in the space of 2 months, I mean, Overwatch would not be in this mess in the first place if they were capable of that pace of development, because it would basically be kind of inhuman, and I'd really be wondering what kind of marching chocolate Phil Spencer is slipping them. But here's the thing, I'm not saying that just to defend the Overwatch team or anything like that. Oh no, Rivals has had an impact in how it has woken them up and how it is going to shape how they think about how they build things. They've actually talked about that, and my god, it gives you a glimpse into the sorts of just infinite meeting, humming and hawing that kind of kills a lot of games. To explain this, you gotta feel just how flat and shitty 2024 was for Overwatch, right? It was stagnation, it was deeper monetization, felt bad, and then Rivals shows up in December and absolutely goddamn clobbers it, right? It's just beating its corpse. It's already dead. That's how it felt. And right as Rivals was popping off, all Overwatch 2 had to combat it was an old mode's coming back. Here's another hero, one of many, an avatar brand collab, and the usual events, which were rehashed. So externally, Overwatch 2 absolutely looked like managed decline. I mean, you just saw the rate of growth, the stagnancy, the monetization going up and up and up. And that is at least a large part of why Rivals was so emotionally resonant. People wanted hero stuff, they wanted the fun of like the good old days of Overwatch, and finally that was here. But we've since learned a little more, and I'm going to TLDR a lot of it for you. Now, developers are sharing some timelines. As an example, they say that Stadium has been in development for years. And I get how that may sound real wacky. I mean, you can slap a third-person camera on those characters, which is already a thing from community maps and stuff. You can throw together a Stadium map and do a round system. Done, right? Yeah. Absolutely, if you're doing a prototype, and you'll need to do that prototype to know if the thing is even worth pursuing. But, there's a big live service. The thing that you throw together as a prototype will not be ready for production. Like any software engineer will tell you that. Even take things like the ability modifiers. With a full setup, you are looking at multiplicatively more interactions, with that scaling kind of exponentially as you add more and more characters. It basically means RIP QA. We already know those guys have it hard. Now, what I am sure of is that Rivals has helped them position and market their changes so that they'll actually, resonate, hit with their audience, because Rivals will have taught them things. It's not to say that Rivals directly meant that these new features were greenlit, but what we do actually know is that Rivals has directly influenced development, just not in a pull Stadium and perks out of a hat in 2 months way. I'd actually say in a far more important way, in that specifically, it's given them a kick up the arse. That's basically what Aaron Keller said. He's the game director, he spoke to Games Radar, and he basically said that Rivals gave them focus and confidence. Or if I was to put it in my own words, ship motherfucker ship, stop having meetings. So yes, confidence is one way to put it. I imagine it is far more of an, oh shit, if we fall prey to our usual indecision, we'll be totally whacked. I imagine it's that, but point taken. And he does give examples. One direct change is competitive banning, where Rivals launch basically gave people in the Overwatch team who are pushing for that as an option validation. And what I think makes this land is one quote from Keller. He said this: "When I look back a bit at some of Overwatch's development, we were a little adverse to taking risks because we didn't want to cause harm to the game. But over time, that started to cause harm to the game itself." I would call that, I suppose, unmanaged decline. It feels similar to managed decline, but a lot of it is just not having a strong cadence of shipping. But now, I think they've quite rightly realized we don't have the luxury of fear. We don't have the luxury of infinite meetings. We have to make changes and ship things, or else players will rightly go to the competition who are shipping things. And as we've covered when discussing Rivals, god damn, the Rivals team has got a hell of a content cadence. They have a big-ass team in China. You know that they can stack that team up with more warm bodies than Blizzard can afford to. And that means Rivals is going to have an almost unstoppable content pipeline for Blizzard to fight. Yet the funny thing about how I entered that paragraph is Blizzard can spend all of this money to fight Rivals, and NetEase will just sit back happy thinking, yeah, that's right, you juice up Overwatch. We'll take that Overwatch 2 money in China. By the way, we're also doing Rivals. We own the goddamn market. Yeah, the real winner? It's NetEase. As for Overwatch, look, put it this way, my frustrations were rooted in that stagnancy and that lack of sauce, and how it felt like Overwatch 2 was just taking over, bare minimum, pushing monetization to the max, full cash cow, style managed decline, right? And sure, they didn't go full-blown League of Legends, you know, not literally Gucci logos, but League of Legends would sell you a $3,000 t-shirt if they thought they could. Even right now, after all the bad news League has had, they have another multi-$100 gacha FOMO skin that's pissed people off. But Blizzard were getting close. Think about how much it costs for the Reinhardt, mythic skin and the mythic hammer. It's a lot of beans. And that felt bad. But when I look at Stadium, I actually see something that could work. Right? And the reason why is because that's not the Overwatch that I played. It's not a tweak on a map. It's not a tweak on a character. It is a new experiential reason to play. And that goddamn matters because it's not something that Marvel Rivals has. Now, I'm sure they could whip that up in no time, but the point is, it's actual competition through a different experience, a different game mode. Thinking about the perks, that helps a major stagnancy problem with this game. There's a new character, there's a new tank in December. I didn't give a shit. I know the characters that I enjoy right now. Maybe if I was playing the game all the time, I'd be hooked by this new tank. But with something like this, I'm just thinking, oh shit, all those characters I know, I've got new perks. I've got new things to select. That's actually a reason to return to the game, because I like the game, not because, say, I like Avatar: The Last Airbender and, oh, there was a collaboration, which is not going to get me back. This is not Overwatch 2 PvE. This is not what Blizzard promised, and it is never going to be. I personally am over that. I have moved on. Overwatch 2 to me is kind of just a hero shooter with some, some good character design, some good gameplay, certainly some troubles, but it's another hero shooter I can play, just like Rivals. What we will probably never get is Overwatch as a fully fledged, deep intellectual property with rich characters, rich story, and truly memorable experiences, right? On an emotional level, a narrative level. Think about the promise of all those big cinematics that people saw, that kind of captured people's minds. And even if a few of them were a bit cheesy, come on, the Reinhardt one, the Bastion one, those were damn good little short films, right? That's what we could have got. And it's not just the Overwatch 2 that Jeff Kaplan talked about at BlizzCon. Think back to Jason Schreier's book in Blizzard, where we learned that some fun C-suite executive headhunting skullduggery led to a falling out between Blizzard and Netflix, which does mean that Overwatch as a brand could have been so much more. Remember when skins used to mean new lore? And the community would start thinking, oh shit, what does this skin mean about this character's backstory? What does this mean about the lore? People were really in deep. Every little detail mattered. And that meant that Blizzard could do a skin and it would have monetary value, but it would also have deep brand investment value. But now, skins are just, you pull a theme out of a hat. We like Dungeons and Dragons, so hey, you could get Mythic Tracer in armor. How adorable, buy it. That doesn't tell me anything about Overwatch as a world. That doesn't deepen my investment in the uniqueness of Overwatch 2. It is simply selling me something that I like in this thing that I play. And that does not make superfans. So many superfans of the late 2010s, they were lit up by that more deep and running under its own power Overwatch on a creative level. Now, these changes are great, I think. And look, I'll praise a company when they're actually trying to ship content and move the needle in a positive way. But these are changes within the bounds of what Overwatch 2, the game that suffered under its leaders and owners, can be. And not what Overwatch, the brand, could have been, which will forever be a sad thing. One of the things in the interview junket for all of this is the Blizzard team basically saying, we can't do that. It's kind of impossible. We got to roll with what we've got and move it in a good direction. And that's pragmatic. That is true. But that's the thing that a lot of the execs don't get when they make those short-termist sorts of decisions that treat the games purely as short-term to medium-term revenue sources, right? They don't get the long tail. They don't get the deeper meaning, the deeper brand value, the sort of thing that makes Overwatch not a flash in the pan that people talk about for 10 years, but that makes it a IP that could last 50 years. Which is all to say, this direction looks good. I'm glad they're actually doing it. Still, it's bittersweet, because Overwatch 2 could have been so much more. Now, obviously, Rivals is the big, the big like aggressor, the new kid in the block. There was recently a story about a director, right, from the American team, and the American team, which was very small, being jettisoned. But as it turns out, this is a wider NetEase strategy, and it's likely going to hit many more studios through this year. There's some corporate skullduggery. There is some insiders leaking to the press about what William Ding, the CEO of NetEase, wants to do. So to learn about that, check out this video next.